Does Nikon Z9 sales rely on Sony? Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much once again joining me for tea time. Today we have a little bit of misty morning, and that is it. I hope you're joining me with your cup of tea, maybe a cup of coffee, hanging out, talking tech, talking video, talking photo. Today is going to be a photo day. We're talking about Nikon. And is the Nikon Z9, their brand new flagship, relying on Sony? Well, there's some new information that just came out about the sensor that is in the Z9. And it ends up that it is a Sony sensor and not a Nikon sensor. Now, a lot of people have talked about this. And today, I kind of want to squash the whole sensor debate. Does it really matter? And the answer, in short, is no. And I want to get into it a little bit with you guys, and I want to get your thoughts about it. Because when we go to these forums all over the place, it's bad. It is really bad. People are just starting to get even more and more nasty. Now, Nikon in the past have used their own sensors. They've made in-house sensors for many, many years. The Nikon 3100, the 3200, the DF. We have, of course, the D3, the D4, the D3S, the D4S, D5, so on and so forth. I think the D700. Those are all Nikon-based sensors that they built in-house. Now, there are other cameras that they have put out there that have Sony sensors in them. And one of the cameras is the brand new Nikon flagship, the Z9, that everyone is raving about. It is a really good camera. Matter of fact, there's even a lawsuit against Nikon trying to get them to shut it down because of, we're not even going to get into it. You can watch another video somewhere right around here. Anyways, it is an unbelievable sensor. It is the 45.7 stacked BSI or backside illuminated sensor from Sony that is in it. This sensor has been determined to be the Sony sensor by a company or a site called Tech Insights, where they break the stuff down and whatnot. And they did find out that this sensor is a Sony IMX609AQJ. So this sensor is 100% a Sony sensor that is in the Nikon Z9. But who cares? All right, and that's what I want to get into today. So many of the Sony guys and gals out there have been talking about this for a long time. Where are these sensors coming from? Is it going to be a Nikon sensor? Is it going to be a Sony sensor? Is it going to be a Tower Jazz? Who's making these sensors? And for some reason, people really care about this. And if you go, like I said, into these message forums, people just get nuts. And that's just it. They really get nuts. Now, that being said, Canon, for example, makes their own image sensors. And they have ever since day one. There was rumors out there that the Canon EOS R3 was a Sony sensor and all this other nonsense. And they finally put a kibosh on that. That was absolutely not the case. It was a Canon sensor in there. So they build their own sensors, and there's something to be said about that also. And I'll get into that before the end of this video. Now, back on topic, a lot of people out there in these message forums are true fanboys. So whatever camera manufacturer they marry themselves to, they hold that camera manufacturer to be the best. And the reason behind that is very psychological, because they have to nurture themselves or stroke themselves in the understanding or the reality, which might not be the reality, that they actually made a good purchase. They spent their money wisely and they bought the best that they could. And that's not necessarily the case, right? Sometimes we make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But the thing is the fanboys don't hold themselves accountable to those mistakes, and they find all sorts of reasons on why their specific brand is better than yours. So it gets to be old after a while, and this is one of these topics. Now, we don't talk very much about companies like Fujifilm that uses Sony sensors, or Panasonic. Now, talking about Panasonic, for example, I was reading an article about Panasonic and their sensors. In 2019, Panasonic basically said, you know what, we're abandoning our semiconductor business. We're just not doing this at all. And I found an article that was very telling. And it simply makes sense, and it kind of brings this all together. This article read, a 2019 report in the Nikkei Asian Review shed some light on Panasonic's decision to exit the semiconductor and camera sensor making business. Apparently, Panasonic has been hemorrhaging money in the market that it first entered in 1952. Back in the 90s, Panasonic was ranked in the top 10 producers of chips by sales, but now they will be selling Panasonic's semiconductor for just over $250 million after reporting a loss of $215 million in the last fiscal year. The buyer is a Taiwanese company that supplies the likes of HP, Dell, and Microsoft. It continues by saying, Panasonic, like many other companies out there, are feeling the heat from Sony. Sony really came out of nowhere when it purchased Minolta back in 2006. Since then, their camera division has taken off with a force that nobody could have predicted. Sony now makes roughly half of all sensors that can be found in cameras, both mirrorless and DSLRs, and their sensors are in an estimated 70% of all smartphones. That is massive, guys, right? That is massive. So we see Sony as being the number one maker of image sensors, period. So why camera manufacturers wouldn't buy from them wouldn't make sense because, number one, they're doing a good job at it. And number two, since they're producing such a mass quantity of them, they're probably going to get them at a relatively cheap, in quotes, cost. To do the R&D and to make your own, it's very costly. But there are some benefits to it also. Now, many of those Nikon naysayers or fanboys to other camera brands, they'll say stuff like, without Sony, Nikon camera division would be out of business. And is this the case? Well, kind of, sort of, yes and no. Yes, if Sony stopped selling these sensors to Nikon tomorrow, well, the Z9 would immediately be halted. That would be it. No more production of the Z9. No, because if this was to happen, Nikon would immediately ramp up their sensor production, their assembly lines, when it comes to a sensor that would be comparable to this 45.7 megapixel Sony that they're getting. So yes, there would be a halt to production, but Nikon would immediately jump on board to try to, as quickly as possible, mitigate this problem. So one of the questions that you would ask yourself, would the sensor that Nikon makes be as good as a Sony sensor? Because Nikon are using those sensors for their flagship product. So they're definitely feeling that their sensors that they're getting from Sony are better than theirs, or they just don't want to do that R&D on them. I'll let you answer that question. Now, what we should all understand here is that every company relies on either raw components or ICs or something from another manufacturer. And some of those manufacturers might be competitors. And that holds true also when it comes to the space game. You guys know that I've been covering Starlink for quite some time and Elon Musk and SpaceX. Well, SpaceX, Elon Musk's venture, is the number one largest satellite launching program on the planet. So what ends up happening is the likes of OneWeb, for example, a competitor to his Starlink, are having their satellites launched into orbit by Elon's SpaceX. And what the fanboys need to understand is this stuff is just simply not personal. It is business. It is not personal. It is business. And that is just simply the way it is. And if they would just get that through their thick head, we wouldn't see so much strife and just vitriol on these forums when it comes to these cameras. My camera is better than your camera. You know, you're using my manufacturer's sensor in your camera, so your camera is obviously not as good, or whatever. It's a bunch of nonsense. Because remember, keep in mind, the sensor is a portion of the whole, right? The totality of the camera itself is not just the sensor, it is the processor, it's the ergonomics, it is the ICs that are in there. It's everything in totality that makes the camera what it is. So if you take the exact same sensor and give it to company A and B and C, Each one of the images coming out of those cameras that they make will be different, period, even though they're started out with the exact same sensor. That's just the way it is. So all this being said, do I think that Nikon should be making their own sensors? Yes. I've said this in the past. I think that it's important. Do I feel that it is cost effective for Nikon to purchase their sensors from Sony? Hell yeah. Do I think that it matters one way or another when it comes to the final output of these cameras? I think no. And once again, the reason is because each manufacturer is going to use the sensor differently. They're going to have different processing happening. There's going to be different ICs involved. There's a lot that goes into it. Once again, the image sensor is only a small percentage of the whole. And the whole is what takes the photo. And more importantly, much more importantly, the hardware of the camera is only as good as the software sitting between the two ears, right? That gray matter. That is what is producing these images, not so much the camera. I've seen many, many photos done with iPhones that look better than professional shots with $6,000 cameras. It is the eye. Once again, it's that wetware between the ears, that gray matter, which produce the images. Definitely not just the little tiny sensor. If Nikon was to build their own sensor, I think that it would provide them greater control, number one. Also, maybe security or some peace of mind in knowing that they do not have to rely on a competitor for a component that is so crucial to the production of one of their cameras, especially a flagship. So in my personal opinion, if you were to ask me, do you think that Nikon should make their own sensor for a Z9 flagship? I would have to say yes. But does it matter? Not so much. Anyways, I want to know your thoughts. I want to hear from you. Down in the comment area below this video, put all of your thoughts, your ideas, your comments. What do you think about this? Are you one of those fanboys that now see things a little bit differently? Or are you a fanboy that will remain a fanboy forever? Or are you more of a free thinker and look at things a little bit different, like me? Anyways, put your thoughts down below. And if you enjoyed this video, even in the least, please throw it a thumbs up. That would be awesome. Share it with your friends, family, colleagues, Reddit, Facebook, wherever. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel as of yet, subscribe and click this little button over here so when I go live or when a new video comes out, you will be notified of it immediately. And finally, head over to my website, JCristina.com, where you can find all the photography tools I've invented for you and me over the years, and hopefully there's something there that you might like. And if there is, please pick it up and support me and my family. And if you just want to say thank you, you can do so by clicking the little thank you button down there. I would appreciate it. Or just simply become a member of the channel. Anyways, guys, I'm out of here for yet another vlog. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next one. Love you all.